It's official. The Celtics are going to face the Orlando Magic in the opening round of the postseason. Some big matchups across the board in this game. You've got Jayson Tatum versus Paolo Banchero, Franz versus Jaylen, Wendell Carter Jr. versus Porzingis. That's a matchup to keep your eye on. Porzingis sometimes struggles against more physical bigs. Wendell Carter can spread the floor a little bit. He's really good on the glass. Physical, going to give KP some problems. You've got KCP versus Drew Holiday. And you've got Derek White and Corey Joseph. That should just be a what for Derek White. Should just be crushing that matchup straight there. All in all, though, this is going to be a tough series. The Celtics are 4-6 against Orlando in their last 10 games. Some of those games, the Celtics have been on demand. Some of those games, it's just been Orlando have been too young to realize they should lose. Another matchup to worth pointing out will be Cole Anthony versus Peyton Pritchard, two spark plugs off the bench. That's going to be an interesting one, too. Orlando are the team that I was most concerned about facing coming into the playoffs. And now it's kind of you got to do what you're going to do, right? So if anyone's new here, my name's Adam Taylor. I cover the Boston Celtics, have done for about 10 years now. I'm currently with USA Today, Celtics blogger SB Nation, and of course, the Celtics Chronicle newsletter, which powers this whole escapade that I'm trying to build in this independent coverage. Make sure you head over to CelticsChronicle.com and click subscribe. What we're going to do today for the next 10, 15 minutes is just talk about how this matchup could go, what to expect statistically, what to expect approaching this game. I think it starts with understanding that Orlando is a far better defensive team than they are an offensive team. And that's okay because the Celtics are one of the best offenses in the NBA. And last season, they held their opponents to under 100 points in 11 of the 19 games they played during the postseason. So Boston are no slouches on defense. They always seem to kick it up a gear in the postseason. Mazzulla will be preaching these shutouts as much as possible. And of course, we're going to see a lot of 3-point offense, which could be a problem for Orlando. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? So one of the first things I think we should look at is if we go to defensive shooting frequency. So this is how frequently the Magic are letting teams shoot around the perimeter, around the rim, from the mid-range. So the Magic rank first in the NBA for shooting frequency from the perimeter. That means they limit opposing teams more than anyone else when it comes to getting your free ball off. 35% of offense against Orlando is coming from deep. They're doing a really good job of denying those shots, closing out to shooters early, taking away angles, making sure that when they do close out, they're not overcommitting. And that's going to really create some difficulties for the Celtics because they need to generate their 3-point offense in order to be the team that they are. So it's going to be kind of like the immovable force versus the immovable object versus the irresistible force. First, in terms of frequency, now this is interesting, and we're going to bounce backwards and forwards between these two different slides. So first, in shooting frequency, one of the worst in the league in terms of actually impacting shots, 26 in the NBA. So they're great at stopping you from taking those shots, but when you do, they're not very good at like impacting the release, speeding you up, making you shoot from a bad position. They're actually just like, okay, you got the shot off, and that is what it is. Teams are scoring at a really high clip against these guys, 37.3%. So as long as the Celtics can find ways to get their shots off, they're going to be very confident of making them at a high clip. Now, obviously, with the Celtics, 3-point variance is an issue all the time. It's either going to go really well for you or it's going to go really bad. It's very rare that it goes okay, right? And what I think has been a big thing for Boston in the last 18 months or so is they've developed ways to win when the free isn't falling. And that's going to be a huge part of whether or not this series is over in 4 or 5 or whether it goes to 6, because there are going to be times where the free isn't falling and you're going to need to rely on getting to the rim, working in the mid-range. With Jaylen Brown's knee, how much they actually look to pressure the rim, knowing that Brown is usually your rim pressure guy, is going to be open to discussion, right? I think that anything right now is open to discussion when we're talking about Jaylen Brown, but he's going to give you a lot in the mid-range no matter what, and that's where we're going to look at next. So first things first, the Celtics are going to come into this series knowing that it's going to be a hard job at generating quality shots, but it's not going to be a hard job sinking them when they actually generate those looks, which leads us to the mid-range. And I like to think about this in a compartmentalized way of there's two reasons the Celtics are going to shoot middies. Three, actually, sorry. There's three reasons the Celtics are going to shoot middies. Reason one, they're attacking the closeout. They're putting the ball on the floor, one dribble, two dribble, pull up from the mid range. Number two, they're posting guys up. They're working out of their elbow series. They're working out around the nail or in the mid post. And option three, they're attacking the drop, which means maybe you're in transition. You come off a drag screen. The big man's dropping. You don't really want to have to contest him around the rim. So you're going to counter with a mid range pull up. Multiple guys on this Celtics team are mid range assassins. Tatum, Brown, Kristaps. I think Derek White's push floater in that kind of floater short mid range area has been really good this year. Drew Holiday can just score across all three levels too. So not only are the Celtics a genuine threat to hurt you in the mid range, and I'm not saying we need to go back to the 90s or anything, but we've seen the Celtics lean on this frequently at times. The Magic don't do a very good job of, they let you shoot those shots basically. They're 28th in the NBA. Teams are using up 33.2% of their offense in the mid-range. A lot of that coming in the short mid-range. I like to call this the floater area, right? It's the gap between the restricted area and the nail, so the free throw line. That little chunk in between is where you get your push shots, your floaters, your lob passes come from there too. That short mid-range area seems to be an area where the Magic just don't really try and lock you down. That's going to be a problem, especially when you've got guys like KP and JB that can work off that mid to low block and really get it cooking there. And that's before we even talk about Tatum. So they're not going to stop you from taking those shots. The thing is, they're also not very good at impacting those shots. Look at this. They are quite good at impacting those shots. They're 6th in the NBA at defending it. They're baiting teams into taking these short middies, and then they're making teams regret taking them. They're actually making teams regret taking mid-range shots overall. But again, there's a level to this. I think that if you've closed out and you've been someone's attacking that closeout, now you're not going to be able to impact that shot because you're coming from behind the play. You're in that rear view. If you're working on a mismatch, the Celtics are going to hunt that mismatch. If you get, Cole Anthony switched on to Porzingis and Porzingis is shooting over him, well, then it's not going to go very well for Cole Anthony. Is it? Same if it's Jayson Tatum on whoever. Same if it's Jaylen Brown on whoever. That's just the way the Celtics like to work. They will swing, run action after action until they get the mismatch they want, and then boom, it's all over. And we will look at some actions in the coming days. I'll do some X's and O's breakdowns. That's like the stuff I really like to dive into. We can look at some actions in the coming days. I'll definitely be doing a full scouting report probably Friday or Saturday over on the Celtics Chronicle. The link will be in the comment section pinned. So you can sign up there, get that sent straight to your inbox on Friday or Saturday, getting us ready for that primer ahead of Sunday. Back to this. So offensively, the Celtics are going to have to work a little bit harder for their free ball, but if they get it off, it's going to work, and they're going to have quite an easy time getting their shots off in the mid-range, but they're going to need to be smart about what shots they take because Orlando are very good at collapsing and taking away that shot. We're not going to look at the rim too much because if you get there, you get there, right? And it's very hard to stop a Jayson Tatum around the rim. It's very hard to stop a Peyton Pritchard when he's Nash dribbled under the rim, come all the way around, hit a reverse, or hit somebody on that 45 dive off the slot cut. And how are you going to stop an explosive Jaylen Brown if his knee's okay? Or how are you going to stop a Luke Cornett that's like slot diving on that 45 cut and he's just going to dunk over you anyway because he's 7 foot, God knows what. So the rim is what the rim is. I feel like the Celtics do a really good job of sealing guys off, kind of like that Daniel Tice seal. They call it a Gortat screen, where you just kind of seal your man away. Celtics do a great job of that on secondary cuts anyway. So I feel like that rim is going to be there whenever they want it to be there. And just the way the Celtics space you out, the way that they run their back screening actions, they run a lot of Spain pick and roll entries. They don't run it to generate offense. They run it to basically window dressing to keep you guessing what's coming next. And that's usually a back screen into somebody driving towards the rim to get a rim finish or a lob pass or a kick out or whatever it may be. So the rim's just going to be there. So I'm not too concerned about that. And that brings us on to offense, right? So offensively, you need to know what you're up against. You need to know your opponent. It's kind of like if anyone's worked in finance or worked in customer service in any way, you've got that KYC check, the know your customer. Well, this is kind of the same. KYO, know your opponent. And this is the side of the floor where I think Orlando really struggled. Orlando don't take a lot of threes. They're 21st in the league for 3-point frequency, which is basically 3-point attempts. How many if we said there's 100 possessions per game, which is basically the average, how many of them are coming from deep? How many of your offensive possessions are coming from deep? Not many, 36.6%, 32.2% at the rim, and then 25 sorry, I'm getting all mixed up here, 31.2% in the mid-range. So it's a very even offense. They're just not very good. They're okay getting to the rim. They're 12th in the NBA getting to the rim. They're 11th in the NBA shooting middies, and they're using that to generate kickouts to the corner. But the problem is, and this is where it gets really bad. So this is the frequency, right? So they frequently get to the rim, they frequently shoot in the mid-range, and they frequently take shots from the corner. They don't make any of them. It doesn't matter where the shot's coming from. Let's have a look at this. They are 12th in the NBA for corner three-point frequency. Only 11 teams shoot more corner threes than them. They're 28th in the league in converting them. They're shooting them. They ain't going in. It's the same as the mid-range. They're 11th in the NBA for taking mid-range shots. 6th in the NBA for long mid-range. That's the free throw line to the three-point line. 16th in terms of conversion. 19th in terms of mid-range. 15th in terms of rim. This team just cannot score. Now, some of this is kind of like, well, the postseason's the postseason. Paolo's going to up his game. Fran's going to up his game. Cole Anthony's going to up his game off the bench. KCP's just a winner, knows how to win in the postseason. Yeah, that's all true. Celtics going to up their game too. You think the Celtics are going to come into this and just be like, okay, you can up your game. We're going to let you know they're going to up their game too. And that is the biggest question here is, how much can the Magic sustain whatever next gear they try to get to versus a Celtics team that's probably going to be getting out of second? This is a Celtics team that is incredibly experienced in the postseason, incredibly experienced in winning postseason basketball games. They're not, yes, okay, they're the champions, but they've been to multiple conference finals. They've been to multiple NBA finals. They've been in deep postseason waters. They've gone on the road in a game 7, win or die. Win or die, win or go home situation and won. They've gone on the road in a game 6, needing to win to send it back home to close out in front of their home fans. They've done all of these things. The Magic haven't done shit. And they've got a lot to learn. That's why they went and picked up KCP during the summer, because they needed that veteran presence to add to what they were trying to build. That hasn't been there yet. And this is one of those postseason runs where it doesn't matter if it ends in 4, 5, 6. Those postseason reps are super important to what Orlando were trying to build. For Boston, this is just the first notch on the belt, the first notch on the bedpost. You're just going to get steamrolled, whether you put up a fight or not. I just find it really hard to see the Magic making this anything more than a 5-game series. I'll give it a 5-game because I think there's a chance that they could steal one. Arguably the first one, who knows? Boston has a tendency in the postseason, especially, to drop a game at home. So I'm always going to be lenient enough to be like, this could go 5. It could potentially go 6. I think that we have a reason to be a bit frustrated if it goes 6, but it definitely could go 6. It's not. I'm 4-1. I think the Celtics win the first one, drop the second, and then they just kick into gear and off we go from there. Do I think Jaylen Brown's knee is a concern and could be an issue here? Of course I do. He's looked like he's lost or is lacking some burst, a little bit of athleticism. That lateral quickness wasn't there in the final few games before he sat out for a few between the season. There's a genuine concern there. I think that you run him more off ball, you play him more in the pocket within the mid range, you use him coming off screens, posting up guys, facing up and shooting over them or shooting around them. I don't expect to see him being like a featured scorer, especially during this Magic series, or primarily during the first few games, while we wait to see just where he's at and where his fitness and conditioning is at versus where it needs to be. And then maybe the Celtics run him that way. Obviously, they know far more than me. They know far more than any of us. But at the moment, I think that the messaging coming out sounds really encouraging. I don't know if everybody saw this yesterday. I aggregated it on the Celtics Chronicle earlier when I was writing up about the Celtics landing the Magic. And I'd taken the actual quote out of, I think it was Boston.com, but it was Horford talking about Jaylen Brown. So I'm just going to read that out right now. He looked great today. I was very happy to see him out there doing everything. It's a really good sign for us. To answer your question, it's tough. I feel like there's a lot of things that he kind of has to deal with when you're in that position. Jaylen is very strong mentally. I feel like he finds a way. He's the type where he's out here putting in the work and trying to get himself ready to go. He understands what's in front of us. I know that mentality. Sorry, I know that mentally he's going to be in a good place. I'm just excited to see him go from this point forward. Drew Holiday had some quotes there too, talking about how Jaylen's looked good while he's out there. And even if he wasn't feeling 100%, he wouldn't let anybody know. He wants to be out there as one of the, like a true leader of the team, wants to play through that injury barrier for them. I'm all in on that. But I'm also all in on protecting one of your best players in the opening round of the playoffs when there's going to be far bigger tests down the line. Orlando are going to be a physical team. They're going to muck things up. They're going to bump you. They're going to hit you. Gogo Bitadze or Bitadze. I can never pronounce his name, but Goga is a problem. Always seems to find a way to hurt someone on the Celtics. He didn't really play much against Atlanta, and I'm not sure whether we're going to see him much in this series, but he always finds a way of just being like this villain against Boston. And I just really hope that Jaylen isn't the recipient of whatever type of enforcer moves he's trying to throw out there, because that'll just be a really big derailing blow for Boston, and one that could be avoided if they just try and manage Brown's minutes or manage his exposure to that level of physicality early while they continue to decide what level that needs at and how best to get the best out of Brown and how best to elevate the team with whatever role they task him with playing. And that's why earlier last week, I wrote about this for the newsletter, but it also went out on Celtics blog. And I think I touched on it on USA Today as well. The two-man game of Porzingis and Tatum in this series specifically is going to be hella important. And I think Tatum's at a level now where he's just capable of running high-level two-man game with everybody. We've seen him run it with Cornette, with Pritchard, with Drew, with Derek. But that actual two-man game between KP and Jayson, especially with Jaylen's knee being kind of that asterisk right now, that's going to be a hella important little combo to run with, just because of the spacing and the gravity they bring and what that can unlock for everybody around them, especially if there's a lot of cutting, a lot of movement, a lot of back screening. There's going to be so many options there if you run from those two guys. And that is an area that I think the Celtics really need to explore early and see how much they can manipulate whatever defense the Magic are throwing out there, especially their perimeter defense. How much can you bend that? How much can you control it when you're running a pick and roll game between KP and Tatum? Can you really be one of the best perimeter shot like defensive teams in terms of limiting frequency when you're trying to shut down KP and JT pick and rolls with Jaylen Brown somewhere on the floor spacing, and then Derek White in a corner, Drew Holiday in a dunker spot? Can you really impact the amount of frequency that team is going to shoot the free ball at? Because if you can, that's impressive. But I highly doubt it, just because of the amount of gravity that's around the floor. So I'd be interested to see how Orlando try and deal with that. But more importantly, I'd be interested to see how successful that JT and KP combo could be, because it may be that two-man duo that you'd really need to lean on between now and the NBA Finals, depending where Jaylen's knees at. So those are kind of my takeaways. I'm expecting a physical game. I'm expecting the Celtics to try and enforce their will on the perimeter, leaning on their gravity, their 5-out spacing, running some vertical spacing with someone in the dunker spot, running a lot of screening actions. We can go through those ad nauseum during the series and leading up. And I'm expecting this to be one of those series where the Celtics maybe get a little bit too big for their boots, drop a game, and then really have to knuckle down. And then the question's over Jaylen Brown. So I'm super curious how everybody else is feeling about this series. Would you have preferred to land the Hawks? Are you happy that it's the Magic? Would you have preferred just not to have faced either of them? Maybe you would have preferred to have just got the first seed because it was within reach at a point. I don't know. That's what the comment section is for. Happy to go back and forth with all of you. As usual, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1,000 subs. I'm rebuilding this channel bit by bit, brick by brick. You've been watching Taylor Talk Celtics. Sign up for the Celtics Chronicle newsletter, and I will be back tomorrow to talk some more. Dun, dun, dun. Celtics. Peace.